We want to spend Christmas quietly with our in-laws, my daughter wrote in a text message, rejecting me after years of my sacrifices. I replied, "Enjoy yourselves." They didn't know that I had invited everyone else to my new villa, where the celebrations were in full swing without them. When they saw the photos, they stormed into my villa and did something I never expected. But at that moment, I knew they would regret it. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. My phone buzzed against the granite countertop. I set down my coffee mug and glanced at the screen. Brianna, a smile tugged at my lips, my daughter finally responding about Christmas dinner plans. The words hit me like a physical blow. We want to sit quietly for Christmas with the in-laws. I read it again, then again. The morning sunlight streaming through my kitchen windows seemed to mock the darkness that had just invaded my perfectly planned retirement. My grip tightened on the phone until my knuckles went white. 30 years, 30 goddamn years of being there for every crisis, every need, every want. The memories flooded back with brutal clarity. Her college tuition at Emory, $60,000 a year when she changed majors 3 times. Daddy, I really think psychology is my calling now. Then communications, then business. I paid every bill without complaint. The wedding to Cody, my contribution alone was $45,000. We want it to be perfect, Dad. It's a once-in-a-lifetime day. I watched her dance in a dress that costs more than most people's cars, while Cody's family contributed their blessing and a fruit tray. The house down payment last year, another $80,000. We found the perfect place, Daddy. The neighborhood is amazing for when we have kids. Kids that never came, but the payments to me never stopped. Every phone call started the same way. Dad, I hate to ask, but yet she never hated it enough to stop asking. Car repairs, credit card debt, vacation funds, home renovations, the list stretched back decades. And I gave, always gave. I walked to the window overlooking my landscaped garden. This villa purchased just last month for $2.8 million was supposed to be my reward, my sanctuary, the place where I'd finally host Christmas dinner in style, where my family would see what their father had built through decades of smart investments and careful planning. The cryptocurrency portfolio that made me wealthy while others called it gambling. The tech startup investments that paid off when others said I was too old to understand the market. The consulting business that thrived because I never lost my edge. But none of that mattered to Brianna. I was just a bank account with a heartbeat. Sit quietly with the in-laws. Translation, your money is welcome, but you're not. The hurt transformed into something colder, sharper. I'd spent enough years being taken for granted. Time to show them what Christmas looked like when people actually wanted to be there. I pulled up my contacts and scrolled to Robert's number. My brother had always seen through Brianna's manipulations, though he'd held his tongue for my sake. Not anymore. I scrolled through my contacts and found Robert's number first. The phone rang twice before his familiar growly voice answered. David, perfect timing. I was just thinking about Christmas plans. Robert, I need to ask you something. I kept my voice steady, controlled. Are you and Sarah free for Christmas dinner? I'm hosting at the villa. Hell yes. Sarah's been dying to see your new place. What brought this on? I thought you were going to Brianna's. I glanced at the SMS still glowing on my phone screen. Change your plans. She's sitting quietly with the in-laws. The silence stretched for several heartbeats. Then Robert's voice came back sharp with anger. That ungrateful little Robert, you're right. But damn it, David, how long are you going to let her treat you like an ATM? Not anymore. The words felt foreign on my tongue, but right. Will you call Mark and Janet? Tell them they're invited too. And the Hendersons if they're in town. Consider it done. You know what? This is going to be the best Christmas dinner you've ever hosted. People who actually appreciate what you've done for them. After I hung up, I walked through my empty villa with new eyes. The formal dining room that could seat 12. The chef's kitchen with its double ovens and warming drawers. The entertainment room with its massive fireplace and panoramic windows. This wasn't just a house. It was a statement, and it was time to make it. The next call went to Tom Richardson, my former business partner, who'd helped broker the Samsung deal that netted me 7 figures. Then Patricia Webb, who'd been there when my startup went public. People who'd witnessed my successes, not just my checkbook. Tom Richardson speaking. Tom, it's David Collins. I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time. David, never a bad time for you. What's up? I explained the situation briefly. Christmas dinner at my place. Close friends only. December 23rd at 6. Tom's enthusiasm was immediate and genuine. Are you kidding? Linda and I have been hoping for an invitation to see the famous villa. She's still talking about the housewarming photos you sent. Count us in, absolutely. Each conversation reinforced what I'd forgotten. I had friends, real ones, people who valued my company, not my contributions to their bank accounts. I moved from the kitchen to my home office, pulling out a yellow legal pad to organize the menu. Prime rib. I'd order it from Morton's, roasted vegetables, twice-baked potatoes, Caesar salad, and Patricia's famous tiramisu if she agreed to bring it. Wine from my cellar, the 2018 Cassis Cabernet I'd been saving for a special occasion, disqualified. In the living room, I rearranged the furniture to create better conversation areas. The leather sectional angled toward the fireplace. Additional seating pulled in from the formal living room. The villa's open floor plan was perfect for entertaining, something I'd had in mind when I bought it, though I'd pictured different guests. By 4, the catering order was placed. The house was ready and my guest list was solid. 10 people who would appreciate both the food and the company. 10 people who saw me as more than a funding source. The afternoon had transformed my empty villa into something alive with possibility. Tomorrow night, this house would be everything I'd envisioned when I bought it. The doorbell would ring tomorrow with my first guest. The doorbell chimed at exactly 6 bells. Through the foyer windows, I could see Robert's familiar silhouette, holding a bottle of wine and Sarah beside him, with what looked like a covered dish. I opened the door to my brother's broad grin and Sarah's immediate gasp of appreciation. Jesus, David. Robert stepped inside and looked around the 2-story entryway with its curved staircase and crystal chandelier. Photos don't do this place justice. Sarah was already moving through the space, her eyes taking in every detail. The millwork alone must have cost a fortune. And these windows? She gestured toward the floor-to-ceiling glass overlooking the gardens. It's like something out of Architectural Digest. Before I could respond, car doors slammed in the driveway. Tom and Linda Richardson emerged from their BMW, followed immediately by the Hendersons' Mercedes. Within minutes, my foyer was filled with warm greetings, code exchanges, and genuine excitement. David, this is incredible. Linda Richardson turned in a slow circle, taking in the space. When you said you'd bought a place, I pictured something nice. This is magnificent. The words hit differently than they would have coming from Brianna. These people weren't calculating what it cost or wondering what they could get from me. They were simply happy for my success. I led the group through the main living area, pointing out features I'd chosen carefully. The imported marble fireplace, the custom built-ins, the professional-grade sound system. Each detail drew authentic appreciation. You've really made it, haven't you? Mark Henderson clapped me on the shoulder. All those years of smart investing finally paying off. Patricia Webb arrived fashionably late with her promised tiramisu and immediately began documenting everything with her phone. David, you have to let me post some photos. This place is stunning and you look so happy. I found myself nodding. Why not? I'd worked hard for this success. I deserved to share it with people who celebrated my achievements rather than resenting them. The evening flowed naturally from cocktails in the living room to dinner in the formal dining room. The prime rib was perfect, the wine exceptional, and the conversation moved effortlessly between shared memories, current projects, and future plans. Remember when you first told us about investing in Bitcoin? Tom raised his glass toward me. We all thought you'd lost your mind. Some of us, Linda corrected with a laugh. I told Tom we should follow David's lead, but he was too scared. Best decision you ever ignored me on, Tom admitted. Look where it got him. I felt the warmth of genuine respect, something I'd forgotten existed. These weren't people who saw me as a resource to be tapped. They were friends celebrating a friend's success. Robert stood for an impromptu toast. To my brother David, who never lost faith in himself, even when the rest of us couldn't see the vision. and to this beautiful home where we're finally getting the Christmas celebration he deserves." The glasses clinked, the laughter continued, and for the first time in years. "Don't apologize. You're not responsible for her behavior." The pounding intensified. "My neighbors would hear this. The whole street would know about the Collins family drama by morning." I reached for the deadbolt, knowing I had to end this before it escalated further. The moment the lock clicked, the door flew open with enough force to bang against the wall. Brianna stormed in like a hurricane, Cody trailing behind her with the expression of a man who'd lost all control of his life. "How dare you?" She pointed a shaking finger at me while scanning the room full of my guests. "How dare you throw some party and exclude your own daughter?" The living room fell silent, except for the tick of the mantel clock. 10 pairs of eyes watched my 32-year-old daughter throw a tantrum worthy of a toddler. "Brianna, you're making a scene. I don't care." She whirled around, taking in the villa's elegant furnishings, the crystal stemware, the obvious expense of everything around her. "Where did all this come from? How long have you been hiding money from me?" Patricia Webb stepped forward slightly, phone in hand. "Excuse me, but this is a private dinner party." "You're being incredibly rude." Brianna's attention snapped to her. You're the one posting pictures on Facebook. This is all your fault." "I posted pictures of a beautiful home in a lovely evening with friends," Patricia replied calmly. "Nothing inappropriate about that. It was inappropriate because I wasn't invited." "You declined," I said quietly in writing. "That's not what I meant, and you know it." The absurdity of the situation was becoming clear to everyone in the room. Here was a grown woman furious that her father had celebrated Christmas with people who actually wanted to be there. Tom Richardson's voice cut through the chaos. "Ma'am, you need to calm down. This is completely unacceptable behavior." "Don't tell me what's acceptable," Brianna spun toward him. "This is between me and my father, not anymore." "It isn't," Robert said, his voice carrying warning. "You've made it everyone's business by barging in here and screaming." Cody finally found his voice. "Maybe we should just go home." And no, Brianna silenced him with a look. "I'm not leaving until this gets resolved." She pulled out her phone, fingers moving rapidly across the screen. "What are you doing?" I asked. She looked up with a smile that chilled me. "Calling the police." "If you won't listen to reason, maybe they'll make you understand." The room erupted in shocked murmurs. My guests, successful, respectable people who'd done nothing but accept a dinner invitation, stared in disbelief. "The police?" Linda Richardson's voice was incredulous. "For what? For this?" Brianna gestured wildly around the room. "For stealing family Christmas? For hiding assets? For elder abuse?" The last accusation hung in the air like poison. I watched my daughter, phone pressed to her ear, preparing to weaponize law enforcement because her father had dared to celebrate Christmas without her permission. The sirens grew louder as they approached my quiet neighborhood. Red and blue lights began flashing through the villa's windows, casting an eerie glow across my guests' shocked faces. 2 officers emerged from the patrol car, a veteran sergeant with grained temples and a younger officer carrying a tablet. They approached the door with professional neutrality, though I caught them glancing around at the obviously peaceful suburban setting. "Good evening," the sergeant said when I opened the door. "We received a complaint about excessive noise and possible domestic disturbance." "I'm Sergeant Martinez." "This is Officer Norman." Brianna pushed forward before I could respond. "Yes, thank you for coming." "They're having this loud party and completely harassing me." Sergeant Martinez's experienced eyes took in the scene. A well-dressed group of adults holding wine glasses, soft jazz playing in the background. No evidence of excessive noise or disturbance. "Ma'am, can you step outside, please?" "Sir, is this your residence?" "Yes, it is." I kept my voice calm and respectful. "This is a quiet dinner party with family and friends." The sergeant nodded to his partner, who began taking notes. "How many people are inside?" 10 guests total. "We've been having Christmas dinner." "The noise level seems quite reasonable now," Officer Norman observed, glancing at his watch. "Nearly 11 p.m. and I can barely hear conversation from out here." Brianna's voice rose frantically. It was much louder earlier. "They were being completely inappropriate for a residential area." "Ma'am, what's your relationship to the homeowner?" Sergeant Martinez asked. He's my father, and he's been excluding me from family events. This is elder abuse. The accusation hung in the air like a toxic cloud. I felt my guest's sharp intake of breath behind me. So do you feel you're being abused or threatened in any way? The sergeant asked me directly. No, officer. I'm hosting a voluntary gathering of friends and family in my own home. Robert stepped forward. Officers, I'm David's brother. My daughter received a text message this morning saying she wanted a quiet Christmas with the in-laws instead of joining family. So David invited people who actually wanted to celebrate with him. You have this text message? Officer Norman asked. Robert pulled out his phone and showed them the SMS thread David had forwarded to him earlier. Sergeant Martinez read it carefully. So you declined the invitation in writing. Ma'am, that's not what I meant. Brianna's voice cracked with frustration. He completely misunderstood. The message seems pretty clear, Officer Norman said diplomatically. Cody finally spoke up, his voice weak and uncomfortable. Maybe we should just go home and sort this out privately. No, Brianna spun on him. They need to understand this is inappropriate. Tom Richardson approached from inside. Officers, I'm sorry you were called out for this. We've been having a perfectly quiet evening. Most of us are in our 60s and 70s, hardly a rowdy crowd. The sergeant's expression suggested he was reaching the same conclusion. Sir, have any neighbors complained about noise? Not that I'm aware of, I replied. We haven't received any other calls about this address tonight, Officer Norman confirmed, checking his tablet. How did you know about this gathering, ma'am? Sergeant Martinez asked Brianna. I saw photos on Facebook. The officers exchanged a look that spoke volumes about their assessment of the situation. Ma'am, you called in a noise complaint about an event you learned about through social media. Brianna's face flushed red. It's the principal. This is harassment. Sir, the sergeant addressed me. You have every right to entertain guests on your own property, provided you're not violating noise ordinances. From what we can observe, you're well within reasonable limits. What about the elder abuse? Brianna demanded desperately. Sergeant Martinez looked at me with professional assessment. So do you have any concerns about your safety or well-being? Are you being coerced or threatened in any way? Only by the person who called you, I replied quietly. The officer's slight nod indicated he understood the real dynamics at play. Ma'am, filing false reports is a serious matter. We're going to need you to move your vehicle, which is blocking the driveway, and allow these people to conclude their evening peacefully. Brianna stared at him in shock, her manipulation having spectacularly backfired. This isn't over, she said to me, her voice carrying less conviction than before. The officers returned to their patrol car, and I watched their red and blue lights disappear into the night. Brianna stood on my doorstep, deflated and humiliated. The police dismissal had shattered her confidence, leaving her looking smaller somehow, more vulnerable than I'd seen her in years. Cody shifted uncomfortably beside her, clearly wishing he were anywhere else. Brianna, I said quietly, would you like to come in and talk privately? She looked up with surprise, hope flickering in her eyes. Maybe she thought the police intervention had broken through my resolve. I led her to my home office while Robert shepherded the guests back toward the living room, giving us space for what needed to be said. Cody remained in the foyer, studying his shoes like they held the secrets of the universe. Dad, Brianna began, the moment I closed the office door. I need you to understand something. I settled into my desk chair and waited. I never meant for things to go this far. The text message. I didn't mean it the way you interpreted it. Help me understand what you did mean then. She paced in front of my bookshelf, gesturing as she spoke. I meant we wanted a quiet Christmas morning with Cody's parents, but I always assumed we'd see you later for dinner or something. You never mentioned dinner. You never asked about my plans. I thought it was understood. We always work something out. I leaned back, studying my daughter's face. Brianna, when was the last time you called me just to see how I was doing? Not because you needed something, but just to talk. She stopped pacing. That's not fair. It's a simple question. The silence stretched between us filled with 30 years of unexamined assumptions. You're twisting this around, she said finally, making it about something it's not. What is it about then? It's about you having this beautiful house that I never knew existed. It's about you having money you never told me about. How long have you been hiding this from me? There it was. The real issue. Not Christmas dinner, not family traditions, control, access, the fear of losing her personal ATM. I haven't been hiding anything, Brianna. I've been successful. More successful than you realized, apparently. But why didn't you tell me? I'm your daughter. Do I owe you a financial report every month? Are my investments subject to your approval? Her face flushed. I felt truly valued. Patricia had been taking photos throughout the evening. Candid shots of conversations, group photos by the fireplace, artistic shots of the dinner table. These are going straight to Facebook, she announced. Everyone needs to see how beautiful this turned out. I didn't object. Let the world see what success looked like when it was shared with the right people. The party was hitting its stride when my phone began buzzing insistently against my leg. I glanced at the screen through my pocket and felt a familiar tightness in my chest. Brianna. I excused myself from the conversation and moved toward my home office, the sound of laughter and clinking glasses following me down the hall. I stepped into my office and closed the door before answering. Hello, Brianna. What the hell is this? Her voice was sharp, angry. No greeting, no pleasantries. Patricia Webb just posted photos of some party at your house with Robert and everyone. I leaned against my desk, processing her tone. She'd seen the social media posts. It's Christmas dinner. You said you wanted to sit quietly with the in-laws. I never said that. The denial was so immediate, so defensive that I almost laughed. Would you like me to read your text message back to you? Silence. Then that's not what I meant. We want to sit quietly for Christmas with the in-laws. I read the exact words from my phone screen. What part of that was unclear? You're being deliberately obtuse. You knew what I meant. Actually, I didn't. I thought it meant you wanted a quiet Christmas with Cody's family instead of coming to see your father. So I made other plans. Her breathing was audible through the phone, quick and frustrated. You went behind my back. You invited everyone except us. I invited people who wanted to spend Christmas with me. You specifically said you didn't. Where did this house even come from? The question came out in a rush, revealing what was really bothering her. How can you afford a place like this? Where did this money come from? There it was. Not heard about being excluded from Christmas dinner. Shock about wealth she didn't know existed. Money she couldn't control. I've been successful, Brianna. More successful than you realized, apparently. Successful how? You never told me about any house purchase, about having this kind of money. I felt something shift inside me, a cold clarity I hadn't experienced in years. I don't owe you a financial report. I'm a grown man who made good investments and built a successful consulting business. This house is the result of 30 years of hard work. But Tad, no. The word came out sharper than I had intended. I won't be guilted for celebrating with people who appreciate me. I won't apologize for having success you didn't know about. And I won't pretend that your text message meant anything other than what it clearly stated. The silence stretched between us, filled with years of unspoken resentment, finally finding voice. You're being spiteful, she said finally. This is because I can't come to dinner one time. This is because for 30 years I've been nothing more than a bank account to you. Because every conversation starts with what you need from me, never with what you can give back. Because you take my support for granted while showing me no respect. That's not true. When was the last time you called just to see how I was doing? When was the last time you showed interest in my life that didn't involve what I could provide for yours? Another silence. Longer this time. I have friends here tonight who are genuinely happy for my success, who celebrate my achievements instead of calculating what they can get from them. This is what Christmas looks like when people actually want to be here. You can't just exclude family because you excluded yourself. My voice was calm now, steady. You made your choice. I made mine. This isn't over, Dad. The threat in her voice was unmistakable. You can't just cut us out because you're having some kind of midlife crisis. The line went dead. I stood in the quiet of my office, phone still in my hand, processing what had just happened. Through the closed door, I could hear the continued sound of celebration, genuine laughter, animated conversation, the clink of glasses raised in authentic joy. For the first time in 30 years, I'd drawn a line, and it felt exactly right. I slipped the phone back into my pocket and opened the office door, ready to rejoin people who valued me for who I was, not what I could provide. But as I reached for the door handle, her words echoed in the quiet office. "This isn't over, Dad." The threat carried weight I couldn't ignore. Was I being too harsh? Too final? I stood frozen for a moment, phone heavy in my pocket like a stone of guilt. 30 years of fatherhood don't evaporate with one confrontation. I remembered teaching her to ride a bike, helping with homework, walking her down the aisle. That little girl had grown into someone I barely recognized. The sound of laughter filtered through the door, genuine, warm, uncomplicated. I straightened my shirt, checked my reflection in the window, and took a deep breath. Whatever came next, I wouldn't let Brianna's drama destroy what I'd built tonight. I opened the door and stepped back into the warmth of celebration. The contrast hit me immediately. The cold isolation of conflict versus this atmosphere of authentic connection. Robert noticed me first. His expression shifted from jovial host to concerned brother in seconds. "David, everything okay?" I nodded toward the kitchen, and he followed me away from the other guests. "The hum of conversation provided enough cover for privacy," she called, I said simply. Robert's jaw tightened. What did she say? She saw Patricia's photos on Facebook, accused me of going behind her back, wanted to know where the money for this place came from. I leaned against the granite counter where this morning had started. She denied ever saying she wanted a quiet Christmas. Of course she did. Robert's voice carried decades of frustrated observation. "David, you've enabled this behavior for 30 years. She's not angry about Christmas. She's angry about losing control. But what if I'm wrong? What if—" "Stop!" Robert gripped my shoulder. "She hung up on you, didn't she?" After making threats, I nodded. That's not how someone responds when they want to resolve a conflict. That's how someone responds when their manipulation tactics fail. Tom Richardson appeared in the kitchen doorway. "Sorry to interrupt, but we couldn't help noticing you looked stressed." "Everything all right?" Before I could deflect, Robert answered, "Family drama. David's daughter is upset he's hosting Christmas dinner instead of catering to her demands." Tom's expression darkened with recognition. The entitled offspring syndrome. Linda and I dealt with something similar with her brother, 45 years old, and still expected us to fund his lifestyle. "What did you do?" I asked, cut him off completely. "Best decision we ever made." Tom's voice was matter of fact. He threw a tantrum, threatened to never speak to us again, the whole performance. 6 months later, he was back with a job and an apology. Linda joined us, drawn by the serious tone. "Are we talking about family boundary issues?" "'Cause I have opinions on that subject." The conversation grew naturally as other guests drifted toward the kitchen. Each person shared similar experiences. Adult children who took advantage. Siblings who demanded support without reciprocation. Parents who used guilt as currency. "The hardest part," Patricia said, "is accepting that love doesn't mean enabling. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is say no." Mark Henderson nodded. "My father used to say respect isn't inherited, it's earned. Applies to family just as much as anyone else." I felt something loosening in my chest. These weren't strangers offering platitudes. These were friends who'd watched me be taken for granted for years, who'd seen the pattern I'd been too close to recognize. "You don't owe anyone your dignity," Robert said quietly. "Not even your daughter." As the evening progressed, the earlier tension dissolved into renewed celebration. The conversation moved to lighter topics, but the support remained, wrapping around me like a safety net I hadn't realized I needed. Around 10 prior, I was refilling wine glasses when I heard something outside. Car doors slamming, heavy footsteps on gravel. I glanced toward the front windows, but saw only darkness beyond the landscape lighting. "Probably the Johnsons coming home late," Sarah suggested when she noticed my distraction. I nodded and returned to hosting, but the sound nagged at me. The footsteps had been too deliberate, too angry for casual neighbors. The pounding started 20 minutes later. Not knocking, not ringing the doorbell. Violent, aggressive hammering that made the solid oak door shudder in its frame. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Wine glasses froze halfway to lips. Every face in the room turned toward the front entrance with identical expressions of shock. "Open this door right now." Brianna's voice cut through the night air like a blade. "I know you're in there." My stomach dropped. She'd actually come here, actually driven across town, to create a scene in front of my guests. The pounding resumed harder now.
Bang, bang, bang! Brianna, lower your voice! I called through the door, moving toward it with measured steps.
We can discuss this civilly. Don't tell me what to do. Her shriek made several guests oblivious.
This is ridiculous.
You can't just exclude family because you're having some kind of midlife crisis. Cody's weaker voice joined hers.
Come on, David, just open up.
We can work this out. I looked back at my guests, friends, who'd come for a peaceful Christmas dinner and found themselves witnessing a family meltdown. Their faces showed everything from embarrassment to anger on my behalf.
I'm sorry about this, I said to the room.
Robert stepped forward.
That's not what I mean.
Then what do you mean? I mean, I need to know you'll still be there for me, that nothing's changed.
I felt something break inside my chest.
After everything, the text message, the confrontation, the police call, she was still trying to manipulate me into maintaining the status quo. What if things have changed, Brianna? Her eyes widened. What do you mean? What if I'm tired of being treated like a bank account? What if I want a relationship with my daughter that isn't based on what I can provide?
You're being dramatic. I don't treat you like a bank account.
I pulled out my phone and scrolled through our text history. Your last 10 messages to me. Dad, can you help with the car payment? Dad, we need help with the roof repair. Dad, Cody's between jobs again. When was the last time you texted to ask how I was feeling? To share good news? To just say hello? She stared at the phone screen, her mouth working soundlessly.
I love you, Brianna.
I always will, but I won't continue enabling a relationship that only flows in one direction. You can't just cut me off.
I'm not cutting you off.
I'm asking for mutual respect. Her expression hardened. This is because of Robert, isn't it?
He's always been jealous of our relationship.
I stood up, feeling the weight of finality settling over me. This is because I finally realized I deserved better than being taken for granted. She began to cry then, but even her tears felt calculated, designed to manipulate rather than express genuine emotion.
Please, Dad, don't do this. I need you.
You need my money.
There's a difference.
I walked toward the door, ready to return to my guests. People who valued me for who I was, not what I could provide. Behind me, I heard her whisper, "This isn't over." But looking at my reflection in the office window, I realized it was. I walked back toward the living room. My decision crystallized like ice in my veins. Behind me, I heard Brianna's heels clicking frantically across the hardwood as she followed. The moment we entered the main room, she launched her attack.
I need everyone to understand something, she announced loudly, positioning herself in the center of my guests.
My father has been hiding money from our family for years.
Money that should have been disclosed.
The room fell silent. 10 pairs of eyes shifted between us, watching this desperate performance with growing discomfort. Brianna, I began. No, she spun to face Tom Richardson. Did you know he bought this house without telling his own daughter? 2.8 million. Where do you think that money came from? Tom's eyebrows rose. From his investments and hard work, I imagine.
Same place my money comes from.
You don't understand. He's been manipulating financial records, hiding assets.
That's enough.
Robert stepped forward, his voice carrying warning. You're making accusations you can't support. I can support them. He's been stealing from family accounts to fund this lifestyle. Patricia Webb laughed.
Actually laughed.
Brianna, your father showed us his portfolio 3 years ago when he was considering retiring. Every penny came from legitimate investments he made decades before you were born. She's right. Mark Henderson added, David, didn't you get into Bitcoin when it was under 100? I nodded. Purchased my first coins in 2011 and the tech startup investments. Linda Richardson prompted multiple companies starting in 2015. 3 went public. 2 were acquired. Brianna's face flushed as the mathematical reality hit the room. My wealth wasn't mysterious or stolen. It was well documented and witnessed by people who'd known me for decades. But he never told me, she protested. Why would he? Sarah spoke for the first time, her voice cutting. You've never shown interest in his life unless you needed something from him. The brutal truth hung in the air. Even Cody shifted uncomfortably, finally understanding how his wife appeared to others.
That's not true, Brianna's voice cracked. I've always cared about my father. When? Robert challenged.
When was the last time you called to ask about his health, his happiness, his plans? Silence. When was the last time you invited him to your house for dinner? Patricia added, more silence. When was the last time you celebrated one of his achievements without calculating what you could get from it? Tom's question landed like a physical blow. Brianna looked around the room, seeing her isolation complete. Even her husband couldn't meet her eyes. You don't understand our relationship, she whispered desperately. We understand it perfectly, I said quietly. And that's the problem. I took a breath, feeling the weight of 30 years lifting from my shoulders. I want you both to leave my home and never return. The words dropped into absolute silence. Brianna stared at me as if I'd spoken in a foreign language. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. Brianna's eyes widened with genuine shock.
Dad, you can't mean that. I'm your daughter.
You're a woman who has used me for 30 years without offering anything in return. Being my daughter doesn't entitle you to unlimited access to my resources or unlimited tolerance for disrespect. I walked toward the foyer, expecting them to follow. When they didn't move, I turned back.
I said, leave. This is insane. Brianna's voice rose to near hysteria. You're destroying our family over nothing. Over nothing?
Robert's voice carried incredulous anger. You called the police on your own father for hosting a dinner party. You accused him of elder abuse in front of officers, Patricia added. You barged into his home uninvited and attacked him publicly. Tom's disgust was obvious. Each statement hit like a hammer blow. Brianna looked around the room desperately, seeking any supportive face.
Cody, tell them.
Tell them this is wrong. Her husband looked at her for a long moment, then at me. Brianna, we should go. You too? Her voice broke. You're taking his side too. I'm not taking sides. I'm recognizing reality. Cody's voice was tired, defeated. He's right, Brie. We both know he's right. I moved to the front door and opened it. The December night air rushed in cold and clean. I've spent 30 years enabling behavior that hurt both of us, I said calmly. I won't spend what time I have left being treated like a bank account with a heartbeat.
I'll change.
Brianna's voice turned pleading. I promise I'll be different. I'll show more appreciation.
I'll call more often.
You had 30 years to change, Brianna. Tonight proved you can't. But I'm your daughter, and I'm a human being who deserves basic respect, something you've never been able to provide. She looked around the room, one final time, seeing nothing but stone faces and disappointed shakes of heads.
You'll regret this, she said, her voice hardening. All of you will regret taking his side when you see what kind of man he really is. We already know what kind of man he is, Sarah said firmly.
We've known for decades. That's why we're here. Robert moved to stand beside me at the open door. Brianna, you need to leave now. She walked toward the exit with Cody trailing behind her, his shoulders slumped in embarrassment. At the threshold, she turned back one final time.
This isn't over, Dad. I won't let you cut me out of your life like this. Yes, I said quietly. It is over, and you cut yourself out the moment you chose manipulation over love. I closed the door behind them and turned the deadbolt with a decisive click.
The sound of their cars, starting and pulling away, felt like the end of one life and the beginning of another. Behind me, I heard the quiet murmur of my friends, my real family, resuming their celebration. For the first time in 30 years, my home was filled only with people who valued me for who I was, not what I could provide. I had finally learned the difference between being used and being loved, and it felt like freedom.
I stood in my foyer for a moment, my hands still on the deadbolt, processing the magnitude of what had just happened.
30 years of enabling, 30 years of walking on eggshells, 30 years of being treated like a resource rather than a person. Over the weight I'd carried for so long lifted from my shoulders, like morning fog clearing from the mountains. When I turned back toward the living room, I found my friends waiting with expressions of pride and admiration I hadn't seen directed at me in years. David, Patricia said quietly. That took incredible courage. Tom Richardson stood and began to clap slowly. One by one, the others joined him until the room filled with genuine applause, not for a performance, but for a man who'd finally chosen to respect himself.
You handled that with more grace than she deserved, Linda added.
Robert stepped forward and embraced me, his voice thick with emotion. I've been waiting 30 years for you to do that.
I'm so proud of you. The validation hit me like a wave.
These people, my real family, had witnessed everything and stood by me. They'd seen Brianna's true nature and David's transformation, and they celebrated justice being served. Sarah raised her wine glass to David Collins, a man who chose dignity over guilt and peace over chaos. To authentic relationships, Mark Henderson added. To knowing your worth, Patricia chimed in. We drank and I felt something I hadn't experienced in decades. The pure joy of being valued for who I was, not what I could provide. Robert pulled me aside while the others continued celebrating.
How do you feel? He asked.
Free, I said without hesitation. For the first time in my adult life, I feel completely free. You're not losing a daughter tonight, David. You're gaining your life back. He was right. The woman who just left wasn't the little girl I'd taught to ride a bike. That girl had been replaced by someone who saw me only as a source of funding for her lifestyle. She made her choice 30 years ago. Robert continued, Tonight you...
Finally made yours? Linda Richardson approached us.
David, I want to apologize for what? For all the times over the years when I wanted to say something about how she treated you, but held my tongue. We all saw it. We all knew you deserved better. Tom nodded. We should have spoken up sooner. But tonight, watching you stand up for yourself, that was beautiful to witness. The conversation gradually turned to the future without toxic family dynamics poisoning every holiday. What would Christmas look like next year? What about New Year's Eve? My birthday. You should host New Year's here, Sarah suggested. A celebration of new beginnings. I'd love that.
I realized I meant it.
All of you here bringing in 2025 together, and your birthday in March. Patricia added, a proper celebration for a man who deserves to be celebrated. For the first time in years, I felt excited about future gatherings. No more walking on eggshells, wondering what mood someone would be in or what demand would come next. Just authentic relationships built on mutual respect and genuine affection.
I can't believe I actually did it, I said almost to myself.
Believe it, Robert said firmly. You chose yourself tonight. You chose peace. Around 2:30, people began gathering their coats. The evening had been emotionally intense, and dawn wasn't far away. Thank you, I said to each person as they prepared to leave, for witnessing this, for supporting me, for being my real family. The hugs were warmer, longer than usual. These weren't just social obligations. These were bonds forged in truth and strengthened by justice. As the last car pulled out of my driveway, I walked back into my villa, truly my sanctuary now. The house felt different, larger somehow, as if removing toxic energy had physically expanded the space. I walked through rooms that were finally completely mine. No guilt, no manipulation, no strings attached. In the kitchen, where this journey had begun 18 hours ago, I made myself a cup of coffee and stood at the window overlooking my garden. The landscape lights still twinkled like stars, but now they illuminated possibility rather than just property. My phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. Thank you for showing us what real courage looks like.
Sweet dreams, my friend.
And Tom, your home will always be a place of love and respect. Sleep well. And Sarah, call us anytime. We're your real family now. Each message felt like a warm embrace, confirmation that I'd made the right choice. I thought about my resources, the investments, the villa, the financial freedom I'd worked decades to achieve. For the first time, it was truly mine to enjoy and share as I chose. No more guilt about not being fair to someone who'd never shown fairness to me.
I could travel now.
Take that river cruise through Europe I'd always wanted to experience. Visit the vineyards in Tuscany. Maybe take a cooking class in Paris. The world felt open in ways it hadn't since I was young. Or I could stay here and create the kind of home I'd always dreamed of. One filled with laughter instead of tension, appreciation instead of demands, love instead of obligation. The eastern windows began to glow with the first hint of dawn. Christmas Eve was beginning, and for the first time in 30 years, I was genuinely excited about the holiday. No walking on eggshells, no careful gift selection to avoid criticism, no calculating how much money would be enough to keep peace. Just the simple pleasure of celebrating with people who wanted to celebrate with me. My phone rang. Robert checking on me.
"How are you holding up?" he asked.
"Better than I've felt in decades," I answered honestly. "I keep waiting for the guilt to hit, but it's not coming. It won't. Guilt requires wrongdoing, and you did nothing wrong tonight except protect your dignity." "I think I'll spend Christmas Day alone," I said. "Not lonely. Alone. There's a difference."
"There absolutely is."
"And you've earned the right to peaceful solitude."
After we hung up, I stepped onto my terrace as the sun crested the horizon.
The December air was crisp and clean, carrying the promise of new seasons ahead. At 63, I was finally beginning my authentic life. The years ahead stretched before me, filled with possibility rather than obligation, respect rather than exploitation, joy rather than guilt. I thought about calling that travel agent later today, maybe booking a trip to Ireland for St. Patrick's Day or Australia for their autumn. The freedom to make plans without consulting someone else's emotional calendar felt revolutionary.
As the sunrise painted my villa in gold, I realized this wasn't just Christmas morning.
It was the first day of my real life. I had chosen dignity over duty, peace over chaos, self-respect over family obligation, and it felt like coming home to myself after a lifetime of being a stranger in my own life. The best gift I'd ever given myself was the courage to demand the respect I'd spent 63 years earning. Christmas had finally come home. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.